So hello guys, welcome back to the YEESI103 training. All right, so now we are continuing with the video series in machine learning, and in today's video, we're going to discuss some different. We're just going to, to continue with Pandas because we have different multiple operations as far as Pandas data frames and series are concerned. So in the previous video, actually, we did discuss, how to check null values and actually what the Panda really is, the difference between Pandas and NumPys and why you should use Pandas and so forth. So if you haven't watched the video, please recommend that you go back in the previous video, you watch it. Okay, so now, in today's video, you're going to see some operations if you want to add some rows in your data sets, okay? And there are actually different methods that you can do that. And two of the most, frequently used methods or common used methods that I actually use is called append and concatenate, okay? So myself, I really am a fan of using appending, and I rarely use concatenate. And the reason being is because these are kind of redundant. So if you're using appending, it actually does the same thing as the concatenate. So you don't have to actually learn both of them. But so for the sake of video, I'll just show you how both of them works. And if you want to try, you can just use and see what works best for you. Okay. So now I'll import pandas. That's the most important thing. SPD. Then let's try to create some dummy data sets. Create, a dictionary. Now, the reason I usually like to start going slow is because most of my students, especially with this YEESI103 training, they don't have an idea of what, really is. So I like to just go a little bit step by step. But if you have already mastered these already, you can just continue with the next videos. In the videos where we do some analysis and some classification in machine learning models. So create a dictionary, or you can create a list or anything. So for me, I'll just create a dictionary, a dummy dictionary, create a dictionary. So, or create a data frame, Mine also creating a dictionary first, I'll just say. So in this case, I'll just use some random menu dictionary. I'll call it this, menu 1. Let's assume we have a restaurant that sells some local food. And now in the menu list, let's create some like this. So say we have food names. You have food names, just food name. And then we can just throw in some random food. Okay, I'll say maybe you have ugali. These are some local foods. So you have this one, and say you have also you have what? You have wali. Just go fast, and then you have maybe YEESI. Just creating some dummy data sets. Ugali, wali, YEESI. Then you have maybe ugali, wali, YEESI. What else? Just viazi, maybe this one will be okay. Okay, so you have some like that. And then maybe you have, the unit price for these foods. So yeah, you can just say the price. I recommend that when I'm doing this, you also do it in your computer so that we get along. Okay, so you have, maybe these are some unique random prices. I'll just put maybe you have these prices, and then you have maybe this one. Okay. So that's some food types, and then you have the prices. I think this is pretty enough. Okay, so you can just maybe run it. So at this point, this is just a pandas list. Yeah, it's a pandas dictionary, sorry. Okay, if you're new to this, you just print here. If you just want to check, I don't know, I've shown this multiple times. I usually like to check the type of the object. passing the name of the object. So say it's a Pandas dictionary, okay? That's great. Now, again, so we are going to convert this one into a Pandas data frame. So converting this to Pandas data frame, we'll say the name of the data frame is actually menu one. I don't want to change. I'm just saying, all right, equals to Pandas data frame. But now I'm passing in the name of this dictionary. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Okay. All right. I'll just come here and I'll say here was converting into a Pandas data frame. So here's converting a list, I mean a dictionary, into a Pandas data frame. So now, if we come here, we can just go back and maybe print, or just print the menu one type. This is how it looks like. I like the print. I usually like to use the print method. You don't want to have to use the print all the time. You can just display it. You don't need this one, but I like to say print, so it just looks like this. But if you don't want, you can just go ahead and say menu one, and then it shows you something like that. There is a difference. Okay, let me show. You don't have to do that. If you run it, it will just show you something like this. So it depends on which one flows best for you. Okay, so that was the creating data frame one, or creating a menu list one. So now we're going to create another menu list and then try to add the rows in the menu list. So this is going to be menu two. And the menu two, what you're going to do is I'll just copy this one from menu two. This should be easy for you. Again, I just go step by step because I understand that my students, like to have all these basics. So you capture all these fundamentals before we go a little bit further forward. Okay, so here I'll change the footy type. I don't want you guys maybe added some chips. And maybe we have uji or something like that. So we have two foods that we have added. Maybe we don't have to add a lot of them. And the unit prices, I'll just go back here. I'll say, okay, so maybe just throw in some random prices. Okay, and then I'll say we have maybe 1,000, something like this. Run it first, no errors, which is okay. So we go back here, I'll say it's not a data frame, so I'll convert it into a data frame. I'll say I just want to update it with the same name. So menu two is going to be some like we just said, it's a Pandas data frame. And then passing the name of the data, of the list that you want to convert, which is actually menu two. And then they should be fine. After this, just come here, say menu two. Okay, so what we have right now here is we have two data frames, menu one and menu two. So if you see, menu one actually has 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 observations or 4 rows. And then in the other menu, you have like 2 different footy types, okay, footy names. So we want to create a menu, updating a menu from this menu one into menu two, because in your data sets, you might encounter something like that, the situation where you actually need to add the number of rows into an existing data set. So the way you do that here, as I said earlier, there are 2 different functions or methods. Append, which is my favorite, I like to use it most of the times, and concatenate. They both work fine, so it just depends on which one you want to use. Okay. So here will be adding a menu 2 list into a menu 1, or you can just say combining the menus, whatever you feel that works fine for you. So now I'm going to use the method called here, using append function. Okay, so how you do this is basically, so I want the resulting to go into a menu. So I'll create a new data called menu, and I'll say, I'm going to now check this here. I'll say, I'll start with the menu 1. So add menu 2 into menu 1. So menu 1 dot append, I'll call the append method, and then I'll pass in this parameter as the item that I want to add. So I'm adding this row or these rows or this data frame into this data frame. All right, so this should just work fine. Run it, no errors. You can display the menu now. So this shows you that, Chipsy and Uji, these, the last 2 rows here have been added into an existing, data set. So now you have a combined data set where you have added rows. You see, that's how you add. However, there is a small observation here. You have if you check the indices, it starts from 0 to 3, which is actually the first one, this one here. But then you also have indices from 0 to 1 added here. So the indices actually has not been, aligned properly. So, and if you want to change this one, you have to add, an attribute here. It's called ignore index. Okay. So just say ignore index. So ignore index, it takes, a Boolean value, and you've put it to true, it changes, it actually ignores indices. So by default, it's put to false. So if you don't put it anything, it just put the indices as they look in the separate data frame. So here I'll say should be true. And then after I run this, you see that the indices actually have, changed from 0 to 5 now, different from the beginning. Okay. All right. Now, if you change to false, as I said earlier, it just go back. Oh, sorry. Now be very careful. This takes a Boolean value. Some people I know, they confuse this and put a string. Don't put a string, something like this. Okay. Okay. It might work, but I've encountered errors myself in different places. So just say, if you turn this, sorry. Oh my God, sorry. All right. If you put into false, you see, it goes back to the previous, mode. So the best way to do this, just say it is true, and that's how you actually do it. So now you have, a combined menu that has actually, a list of items in a combined mode. Now, you might want to use a concatenate method, which is actually, a little bit different from this one, but it's just the same. You say, so now, say creating a new menu using concatenating a concat method or a concat function. Okay, so how you will do it, let's say a resulting, we are going to use, menu 1 and menu 2. That's what we're going to actually, we're going to append the menu 2 into menu 1, adding these rows again, but I'm going to use a different name, not a menu. I'll just call a menu, maybe C, because I'm using concatenate, so menu concatenated. I'll say this equals to pandas dot concat, call the concat method, and then you pass in parameters. But here you're going to have to put square brackets. Now say I'm going to concat menu 1 and the menu 2, something like this. If you run, no errors, you can print, or you can just say menu C. That's how you display it. Again, it works the same. Now you can see the indices are not aligned. Just go there, add as I told you, ignore the indices, say ignore index, and set it into true from the default. And then it should just work very fine. You see, so this is how you actually add data. Add number of rows, from an existing using concatenate and appending. Okay, now observe one thing. Here we actually did add. If you see here, this is the first menu and the second menu, you have the same number of columns. Like in this menu here, your column is actually food name and prices, and here is the same. But again, watch out. What if you add something different? Let's create a different, object, and then try to add, we had different number of columns. You see how it behaves, all right? Because sometimes your data set may not always be the same. So let's say here, adding a new food. Let's say a new food just came into the menu, adding a new food. So let's say, all right, from now, I like to use a list. You can use anything. I like to use a dictionary. You can use anything. So here I'll say maybe no food, some along the lines of no food equals to, I'll say this no food, maybe I just call it in names at first. The first column is food name. So I'll just put food name, and then say in the food name, I'll put maybe one food. I'll call it maybe makande, or maybe 2 rows. I can say it's called makande and maybe mtori. Okay. Now we add in the unit prices like we did. So I'll say the price, just repeating these columns as we mentioned earlier. So now just put some random prices. Say this is the price for makande and the price from Tori, maybe it's this one. Now after this one, I'll add another column. Okay, I'm trying to violate the rules, so I'll put another column, and this column will say maybe it's the place of origin, where they originated, place, just making things up. So it says place of origin, the place of origin, and then I'll just put some like in this list. I'll say, okay, where they come from, the values. So the first one, we'll say maybe it comes from Mwanga, and the first one maybe comes from, just put Moshi. Okay, and then I'll run. So you have some like this. Again, you may want, okay, you don't have to always come in creating a data frame like I use up there, like calling it all the time. You can just do it in a single line, like convert this to a data frame. It should be a data frame, and then come all the way here. This should be fine. This is already a data frame. You don't have to do the type. But again, if you want to check the type, you can just say type. Yeah, you can observe that today I'm not using the print function. I'm always using it. It's okay. Either way, it's fine. So type the no food. Yeah, it's still a data frame. Now, let's add this data frame into existing data. Any of those, we can add it to a menu C, or we can add it to a menu. It depends. You can use concatenate, or you can use append. All of them are fine. So I'll just start with appending. Let's say append. So adding. So in the beginning, we added multiple rows. Now I'm adding a, okay, these are also multiple rows because we have two elements. So adding rows to a data frame using append, just like there. So here I'll say what I'm creating is should be menu, and then in the menu append. So the existing menu, so the existing menu is this one with farming 6 rows. So from 0 to 5, that makes them 6. So menu dot append. Okay, what am I appending? I'm appending a menu. I'm appending a menu, a new food into a menu. So I'll say new food, which is this one, into a menu, and then I'll just set it to ignore because we know now what we're actually doing. So I'll just ignore index. I'll set this to true. I shouldn't get any errors, I hope. So menu, displayed, and then this should work. Now you see, you have actually added Makande and Mtori. These are the two rows here. And simply because you added a whole new column, it added another column, which is called place of origin. But because you don't have any values for these guys, they are called to be not a numbers. Like these are missing values because it created a new place of origin. So that's what happens. So if you create, a list that doesn't allow, like it doesn't have the same number of rows and same number of columns, it will create those and then just put, a bunch of null values, okay? And this will work the same if I used concatenate. So adding rows using concat method, I'll say, okay, so the resulting, I'll call it menu concat. Now I'm updating menu concat. You can put a name of your choice again, and then I'll say it's a pd dot concatenate, and then in the concat you put square. Don't forget these square brackets, okay? It's different from the way, the syntax is different from append. So here I'll say, where am I concatenating? I'm actually concatenating an existing menu C, which is this one here, menu C with 6 observations. And then what I'm adding is I'm actually adding a no food. So I'll say no food. Again, you know what? Do just say ignore index value. So just set this one also into true. And then run it. That should be fine. You can come here, just display the menu C. Should be updated. The first one has 6 rows, remember. So here you have a couple of rows added, okay? Yeah. So Tori Makanda, it's repeating itself. Let's just run all these cells. Refreshed. So now you have 2 observations here that's already added, and the same, it works the same as this one. Okay. So thank you for watching. In today's video, I actually did discuss about how to add rows. It can be a single row, it can be multiple rows. Into existing data sets. And if they don't allow the number of columns, they need to add a bunch of null values. We have seen we can use either append or concatenate. Okay, so for the sake of this class, we use both, but in real life, you actually don't need all of them. So because they just kind of redundant, they work the same. Okay, so see you guys in the next video.